I'm going to attempt the tricky feat of managing my notes on one Surface Book and the presentation on another. So I hope you appreciate the complexity of what's happening beneath the surface here. And wouldn't it be wonderful if hello recognised me? Yes, it does. Wonderful. Good. Questions? Okay, I'm going to put the. I can. There we go. That's me. I'm gonna.
We'll share the slides.
So, Carlos was kind enough to say, "I'm sorry about the screen resolution on your first slide, Mike. It's come out a bit fuzzy." I said, "No, it's deliberately like that because the future is a bit fuzzy. It's kind of just there, but it's slightly out of focus. And as we get closer, it gets more in focus." But anyway, that's the story on that slide. I'm here to, I hope, have a conversation and share some of my thoughts. It's very useful for me in doing these things that it pulls my thinking together. But what I'm not presenting is a completely formed set of thoughts. I'm presenting my experience of transformation as we're doing it in Ealing, as I'm thinking about it and my role within that. But it's not a fully formed article. I really welcome the conversation, and I know there's a lot of people in the room who have a great deal of knowledge around this area. It's an area we've come quite late to in Ealing, and it's interesting for that reason. I've only been in Ealing 6 months, and the organisation has come quite late. But let me tell you a little bit about Ealing, and I'll also say what I do. So that's the magnificent Ealing Town Hall, lovely Victorian Town Hall. Ealing is a borough of about 350,000 people. It's the third largest London borough by population, called the Queen of the Suburbs. Isn't that lovely? When it was truly a suburb and a lovely leafy place for people to live who commuted into London. Heritage of Ealing Studios and the Ealing Comedies. Some people say we get aspects of that within our work, but Ealing Jazz Club, the Rolling Stones met there and formed. Home to Spencer Perceval, the only British Prime Minister who was assassinated. I don't think he was assassinated in Ealing, but that's where he lived. There's some things there about Ealing. Some middling deprivation. That's the central office block. A wonderful, magnificent homage to 80s architecture. We're going to knock it down, and we're going to sell the site and build something a lot better. Middling deprivation, youngest population, highly transient, large Sikh and Polish population, very large Polish population, and Southall is within the boundaries. It covers Southall, so a very large Sikh community. One of the largest temples outside of India. Huge building. We've got a 3-star Better Connected website. The planning isn't great, but but rubbish collection is judged to be class leading in terms of our website functionality. We won a recent MJ award for our Brighter Futures children's work, and we've just come out of an Ofsted and got a good rating, which puts us amongst the 10% who get that rating. And a recent peer review said we're a Beacon Northwest London Council, and that's an LGA, Local Government Association peer review. So it's interesting. There's another shot. You just can't get enough of this wonderful architecture, can you? It's important to appreciate it. One of the big things is connectivity, and you think, all right, he's going to talk about digital connectivity. Actually, one of the big things in Ealing, I think this map's slightly out of date, is actual connectivity physically. Crossrail's massive. It's going to be, currently we're on the last stop on the Central Line, and in fact, when Crossrail's completed, it'll be 12 minutes to Tottenham Court Road. Fascinating physical description of how connectivity shrinks things and brings things together. my role within Ealing is I'm Director of Business Services, which is and the CIO. So it includes ICT, it includes FM, it includes procurement, very useful one to have procurement, includes transactional finance, health and safety, so, some bits. But my passion and my background is around digital and around transformation, and actually that set of services works quite well. So I've talked quite a lot about that. Why does this matter? Why have I told you all these lovely facts about Ealing and hopefully made you smile a little bit? What's important and what does that mean for Ealing? Well, it is quite critical because I think Jeff talked about national context. I think local context is equally important. The transformation journey we're going on is just absolutely vital to set that within the context of our authority, and hopefully some of the things that I'll talk about will make you'll draw the lines and you'll think, oh yeah, that could connect with that, and if not, I'm happy to talk about it afterwards. So, setting context at the centre, these are some components of local transformation, many thanks to Matt for the slide design for this one. I nicked it off him years ago. We may see it later on. So, components of local transformation, and I'll just gamble through these and touch on a few. I'll talk a little bit about where I think we're making ground, but I'll also talk about areas where we haven't quite figured it out yet, and I'm at the early stages of my thinking. So if we turn to the first of those, vision, values and priorities. We all know when we're bringing a piece of work, it's important to have these things, but there's particular aspects, I think, around transformation within digital context. I think it is important to look to the future. Sometimes technologists amongst us can look just a bit too far, and we're talking about, I don't know, bring your own app or something, which is way off the Gartner hype cycle even. And therefore stretching that elastic, talking about vision, talking about future, but in a way which is grounded and real to people. For us, the shape of future public services is extremely important, and that's the vision in which we're basing some of our conversations about transformation. That being place-based personal services, about one public sector. Certainly with the other half of my job, I'm talking about one public estate, and that in a buildings way, but also building that in an organisational way. I'm just going to have to grab a glass of water. I'm getting drier as I talk. Oh, is there? Oh. There is indeed. It's sneakily hiding behind that. Get excited about what I'm saying and then I get dry. Then talking about values, modelling values and building on values, and this links to the people part of it, connecting people and information, empowering others to change, collaboration, those kind of values that we bring to that conversation. And interestingly, I think one of the most fascinating qualities is almost a willingness to make yourself redundant. It's funny, it's the most searched after, appears to be the most searched after skill set. Somebody who's prepared to do themselves out of a job in lots of ways. It's ironic, but it's very true to not have that stake in a physical role that you occupy, but to carry the discussion beyond that. Green priorities. I think we know that we've got to agree priorities in any programme of work. I think what's really important is that it's easy to be overwhelmed by transformation and digital, and to concentrate on one or two. I really admire people like Dylan Roberts at Leeds saying, look, we think we're doing okay in the health and the social care sphere, but actually we're just learning in other spheres. They're concentrating the effort in one place, and I personally think that's an aspiration that we will carry forward as we form up our program. But also, what I'd say within all of that, covering all of that, is the importance of trust. I found this model. It's a chap called Jim Simpson developed this model. So credit to Jim for that one. And it talks about innovative capacity on the right hand side, and then it talks about trust. And only when innovative capacity and trust are high will we truly be performing in an optimal way. And I try to remember that in my conversations around the authority and trying to take this forward, that again, we can't stretch the elastic too far. We have to have that baseline of trust, and that's extremely important. So let me move on to the second component, which I've called the new ICT department. I guess the first thing, because this is a requirement upon us to behave in different ways. Jeff touched upon this. I question the whole idea of the new ICT department. I'm not sure it is or should be any more. I think the boundary is blurring considerably, I absolutely agree with what Jeff said. This isn't about pulling work towards us. This is moving towards people and occupying that ground where there is an overlap between the business. Yes, the solid technical work needs to be done without a shadow of a doubt. There is fundamental technical work that needs to be done, but also in the way we work, we're changing in the sense that cloud isn't conventional. I've gone through this transition. It's not insourced, it's not outsourced. It's a slightly different way of working, and we're more about data and transformation. And that's what I'm building within Ealing, an ICT function that really concentrates on that transformation and data aspects. If anybody's got the opportunity and you're interested, I found John Jackson's work on the 4 pillars of how he constructed his ICT department in Camden very helpful and informative, and I've drawn from that. So how will our ICT change? We have a great some bits and pieces that we're doing. We have a cafe area within Ealing. It's really well used. It covers a fair chunk of the ground floor, and within that, in the corner of that, is in fact quite prominently is an ICT service desk. I'm going to call that the Digital Skills Centre. And I'm going to say, it's not just about IT problems. It's not just, it doesn't work. Come when you want to just ask a question. We'll even work with people's own kit. We'll do whatever we can to advise and share the skills. And in that way, we're changing. The Digital Skills Centre, I think, encapsulates that. We're mixing and matching our agile and traditional approaches, with data being very central to that. But also, I think we're touching on a concept of bimodal IT. In terms of bimodal IT, I pulled this up from Gartner materials, and it talks about different modes of IT. I think in a very relevant way, that some things where the goal is reliability, the basic technical platform, we can do those in a conventional way, and that conventional way works very well, solidly planned, and so forth. But for some other objectives, we need that agility. We need a lot of the things that you will be familiar with on there. It's short-term goals. It's short-scale working, very business-centric, etc. And I think that's a really interesting concept. I haven't quite worked out entirely how that will pan out, but it's something that I want to take forward. And just in terms of the philosophy of the ICT department, I picked this. This is completely left field in many ways, and it was just a lovely quote I picked up. I've been with my primary care physician, etc. He believes there's more than one way to treat a patient, and I thought, wow, yeah. I imagine myself sitting in my GP surgery and thought that would be great. That'd be a fantastic service. And then I thought, hang on, can't we do that as well? Rather than just this is the problem, this is the technology. If we can have that different conversation in a way that people find holistic and is very broad and may not result in any technology from it. So let me move on to the third component, and I'm going to speed up a little bit. And this is about people. It is. I'm actively recruiting for diversity. Jeff touched on it. Millennial digital natives. Balancing that turnover. I read something just. I think it was just the Metro or something. The millennial generation, i.e., those born after 1980, only expect to stay in a job around 2 years. And also their expectations of a job and their expectations of that interface with the organisation and with their manager are completely different. They expect more collaboration. They expect more. They expect more independence. It's changing. It's changing, and we need to reflect that. I really want to improve the digital skills across the whole of the council. That digital fluency, the focus on data is quite tough, but we need to keep up the awareness of that sharing, analysis, and reuse of data, and how powerful that can be. And the embracing change, of course, that willingness to embrace change. So let me talk about the fourth component, supportive technology and delivery. I think we do need technology that inspires, that enables, that's accessible. For us, that means a really full suite of Microsoft products, but possibly for the first time we're not just focusing on the implementation of them, we're focusing on the exploitation of them. And actually it's the second bit which is becoming more important to me. We're barely touching, I haven't listed one note there, I've just realised it's missing. We're barely touching on the capability of a lot of what we've got. And we're coming out of an outsourced ICT agreement. We're having a mixed economy around ICT, and it's an opportunity to change and to bring up the technology in a way that does hopefully inspire people. And I really want to exploit the full set of technology. We're doing a Cloud Navigator piece with Microsoft at the moment. We're just coming to the conclusion of that. It's been really helpful, really helpful in terms of affirming the technology roadmap and thinking about that exploitation and thinking about what the next steps are. And we've also had discussions with Shaping Cloud around the data aspect of that. So supportive technology, I guess that's pretty clear. What is important is delivery. It's important to all of us. You've got to keep delivering. I'll touch on one area that might be of interest to people. I hope so. You may have seen this in the press recently. Ealing is the host for something called the London Counter Fraud Hub. It's a partnership with SIPFA, the accountancy body, using BAE technology, and it's really very interesting. All 33 London boroughs want to participate in this, want to give the data. This is about detecting the fraud. We reckon we can lever 60 million. It's also important that, and quite groundbreaking, that SIPFA are absorbing a lot of the risk, in fact all of the risk of that. First of all, it's payment by results, and secondly, it's soup to nuts delivery. It's the complete piece. In order to deliver those gains. So a pilot phase will get underway in autumn. We've gone through a really intensive procurement exercise for that, and we're forming up the team. one of my team will be steering that work moving forward, and working with people right across London. And I'm really very excited about it. I think it's going to be great. So I'll look forward to talking about the results of that as it moves on. So the last component I wanted to talk about was keeping the lights on. Probably most people in this room come from an IT background and will know how important this is. It is important to do that. Most chief executives associate digital with ICT, and wonderful. We have a little moment in the spotlight through that. Whether they associate us with transformation is probably largely up to us, but most chief execs associate that digital with ICT. But it also means, of course, we can't drop the day job, and the digital technology grows more ubiquitous, more complex, and more essential. And of course, we must make sure that we don't drop the balls and keep the reputation of what we're taking forward. So, I hope some of the things I've touched on, some of the components have stimulated some thinking in yourself. As I say, it's not a finished article. We're not there yet. I also I love that quote from Winston Churchill, long before Agile, and boy does it feel like it sometimes. You just need to keep going. There needs also to be a tolerance of failure, and that's a tough negotiation to conduct with both your senior management team and political stakeholders, especially if there's an election coming up. But that's something we juggle. I think that context-relevant transformation and the way we go about it will steer us through. And it's just pure chance that the Ealing motto is progress with unity. I talked about the conversation. I talked about collaboration. That is just so true. And despite the old-fashioned nature of the logo, I think that speaks very loudly to me and my role within Ealing. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take questions if I've got time to do that.